rescue me yet again. You put me first everywhere. You make me feel better than the mother too.
Vast majority earning $70,000. Socially, they look like, but the inability to go out and what we would consider meet a woman and progress into some sort of romantic relationship. Some guys report having had sex in high school and or college, but when you delve into it, it was usually a woman who was kind of leading the process. He couldn't, quote unquote, make it happen. It wasn't that they wanted to. It's just because the longer it happened, guys started feeling insecure and became like an Ouroboros. It just ate on itself. Next thing you know, Steve, what is it, 40-year-old version with Steve, whatever, became a real thing. And I was ignorant to this. But when I started hosting my show, I would have more guys calling in. These men, in my experience, want relationship. They want romantically significant, emotionally fulfilling relationships and a sexual relationship. They have female friends. They're often in the friend zone, but there's a disconnect there. And no one's teaching this. No one's talking to it. And a big part of it is that fear of not knowing how to do stuff.
It's admitting, right? Because, I mean, how many men would be comfortable reading a book on the subway that said, how to please a woman?
Well, it's not many. But it's also where you're going to go to try it out. I'm a fan of legalizing the sex trade. Mm-hmm. Legalize it. I mean, regulate it. I don't want to see, trafficking and all that kind of crazy stuff, but, I call it the oldest profession for anything. I know there's a lot of, I don't want to say ignorance, misunderstanding on men's side. Because even when I sit down and talk to guys, I know I've studied and looked at it a hell of a lot more than they have. Because I'm a scientist at heart. I find it kind of interesting. But there's that part, and then there's actually getting it done in the real world. Here's another part. We talked about sex as an act, and let's talk about other components. Foreplay, we'll get to that. Intimate, erotic, dirty talk. Mm-hmm. Extremely difficult for most men.
Yes, for people, it's another language.
Yes.
Spanish is hard, right? It is an entirely other language in itself, and it's a language that you've been probably conditioned to know your whole life is bad. These are words that you don't say unless you want to offend somebody. So if I'm in the most intimate space with that person, these aren't the words that come to mind for me, number one. Number two, I don't even know any other words.
Well, and I will say, for me, I had to learn. I think I'm a pretty good communicator. That one, had to learn because I'm glad I did, because for women, especially women I've dealt with, that's been an important part of it. Mm-hmm. That's why I said there's just so much of this that we're all expected to just know this stuff. So you mentioned you were a sex ed teacher?
No, I went to various sex ed counselor.
Sex ed counselor. When I was in school, we actually had sex ed. Mm-hmm. I don't think sex ed is still in schools.
Well, it's called health. It's
called health?
Yeah, it's a part of health, yeah.
Now, I remember that film where a woman gave birth and all that kind of stuff. I want to look that up. I don't know if it's still...
Jared, you watched it in school. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you went from Canada?
Yes, from Canada.
Okay. I'm going to look this one up because the sheer amount of not knowing. And men, we're big on respect and our egos are huge. We don't like to not know how to do stuff. So it's intrinsic to a lot of guys. If we don't know, we shy away.
Especially in an area that you've been told is so tightly tied with your masculinity.
Especially as a black man.
Especially as a black man.
You're supposed to be a sexual pro.
Yes.
And no, it's not. Mm. And I talk about these issues when I talk to men. It's like, I've actually started speaking about it. Stop putting that burden on yourself that you're a sex pro. You're not a porn star. You don't play football at the pro level. You come on. Because we have to start getting to a point to where it is so foreign to where people are just comfortable to not try. Because while we do have a lot of information, think we're also at a point where we have so much information. It's almost like people are becoming numb because like, what am I supposed to do with this? And they don't even know how to do the initial thing. Hi, how are you? Hey, how are you? Let's go out and do that.
Which is why dirty talk is actually probably, if you make the fucking school, it should be the first course that you take, because that is the gateway to the dance that has to happen. Communicating what you like, what you don't like, taking the things that you read on some Instagram carousel that said there's an E spot, which is what I saw today. I've never heard of that letter before for the female anatomy. Today,
E-spot?
E.
Oh.
Today I heard about the E spot. So how do we take this language that we see and then turn it into constructive dialogue in the bedroom? And that's where dirty talk can help do that. I think the problem that we have with talking about sex a lot is that we have two different energies. We have sex and it's playful, it's lusty, it's exciting, it's wet, it's curious, it's fun, it's awkward, but in a funny way. And then we talk about sex and it's filled with insecurities and ego, and it's stiff and it's competitive and it's dry.
So, and one of the bigger things coming from the Bible Belt, getting women to openly be truthful and admit what they really like, getting men to understand and trying it. They'll talk one way with one another, and then over here, just like you're talking about the self-reporting, you're saying no, but the test is saying something else. So maybe that should be part of the sex school. Hooking you up to a monitor and finding out what you really like.
There's levels to this, though. Are you familiar with like Horrible Decisions?
No. Well,
they're a female podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She hates me.
Really?
Yeah,
There's two of them.
Well, it's not Mandy and
yes,
there's another. Yeah,
Easy.
Yeah, she hates me. According to, she was on Adam 22 No Jumper. She thinks I'm a horrible person. Not a horrible person. You just don't know me.
Right.
She'll probably be shocked as hell that I'm sitting down here with you.
I'm sure many people would be. I'm sure.
I don't know. Well, if they are, they haven't been listening.
Well, I'm obsessed with this topic and I am fascinated by it, and I want to be a part of the dialogues people are having, and you are leading many of those dialogues. So to not be ears open, it doesn't mean that we can't have discourse, but it's an undeniable impact that you've had in this space, and this is a space I care about.
I think it's easier for women, like they're extremes on both sides. And I've said this before. There's 10% over here, 10% over here, and then there's 80% in the middle. The middle, roughly the middle ground. But when nothing is happening, if you're not, let's say we've just had the Great Resignation, right? So many people have decided, fuck this shit, I'm out. Leaving corporate America, downsizing, right-sizing, whatever, because they're starting to prioritize quality of life, relationships, interpersonal stuff over the hustle and bustle. Now, we've had things that have become, to make it easier, distance working and things like that, make it, more acceptable. But now people have choice. You have a choice. And same thing in the sexual marketplace and the dating marketplace. If you're on this extreme or that extreme, it's easy to be a rabbit this or a diehard that, when the actuality is you want a relationship, you don't want it to fail. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest points of failure I've heard from women is, things were going right, but the sexual thing wasn't right. And guys need to know that this is something they can do something about before it ends and it's just irreconcilable differences or something like that.
So here's what I wanted to reflect back on you and get your thoughts on this. What I've seen in the dating market, and I think the pain point that's kind of coming right now between men and women, is that there's a particular percentage of the internet population who's asking women to ask for less. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, your standards are too high, you want too much, and they enjoy seeing those women being told that they need to ask for less. Mm-hmm. But what that women many of the times are looking for is somebody who's equally yoked, at least bare minimum financially, mm-hmm. right? So if they have achieved a certain level of success, they're looking for a partner who is like also achieving financial success. And then sexually, women have become liberated. Mm-hmm. They are learning more about their bodies. They are becoming more vocal about that. And as a result, maybe they're having more partners. And then men, instead of saying, I'm also going to liberate and educate myself, they're asking women for less.
Okay.
They're saying you should have less sexual partners. You should be less curious. So instead of rising to the occasion to meet women where they are in the advancements, they're asking women to come back down a notch.
Okay. What was the question you want me to respond? The point you want me to respond to?
I think do you think a part of the problem here is that men don't have role models and don't have educators and don't know where to go. And instead of seeking those out or doing a self-education process, they think that the solution is to get women who are getting ahead in this area to come back down to their level.
Are we talking about, okay, let's talk about the first one, the advancement piece of it. And see if we can get it all in one place. I think that's one of the things that separated my content. Because when I started talking about this, high value man is not a Kevin Samuels creation. It's been around forever. I've heard women talk about it for years, men talk about it for years. I just kind of put some parameters around it. And right, wrong, or indifferent, when talking to women, especially these days, they tend to want men who traditionally would be considered to fall in the top 20%, the Petro principle, okay? Because I think I heard you also mention something about, men need to step up, they're underachieving, we need to get more guys in college and things like that. And I'm talking about the guys who are already in that position, maybe from a resource standpoint, or at least a mindset to get those kind of resources. They tend to have more, I don't want to say options, but
I guess there's like to go off topic, but there's the golden penis syndrome, which is a term that's used to describe the Bidenomics right now, which is that women since the 1980s have been graduating from post-secondary schools, and now actually since the 2000s are graduating with doctorates at a higher rate than men are.
PhD.
Yeah. So, and not to say that, of course, that education is the way to a better life, but sociology will tell you that this is closest to the sure shotest way. Maybe that's changed with crypto, I'm not quite sure, but nonetheless, that women are giving themselves an undeniable base for earning potential, and because men aren't coming to universities and colleges, that's a part of it. So you've got men who have golden penis syndrome, that if you are financially well off or you are university educated and you are in a position to have similar earning potential, there's less of you, so women have to compete for you more.
I think this is where the mismarketing, I think, comes into play, because according to the numbers, especially in the Black community, we got women have $1.7 trillion in debt. So when it's all sorted out, the average Black man is earning $40,500. The average Black woman is earning $37,000. So the average white man earning $51,000. So there's $11,000 difference. So regardless of the education, the numbers, men are still out earning women. We don't also factor in, a lot of guys are choosing not to go to college, they're choosing to go to trade school. Because we have science, technology, engineering, math are careers where you can actually increase your amount of earnings versus if you just went to business administration, communication, things like that. So,
but STEM would be a part of the education. I guess I have to look into the earning potential, because I know specifically for Black women who are amongst one of the most educated groups. And I went to an HBCU, and I could tell you anecdotally the difference in earnings and the difference that I see in general in terms of representation when I go to corporations. So I'm fascinated, especially given the incarceration rate, that Black men are out earning Black women.
There's a website that you and your viewers can look at. It's called blackdemographics.com. So they take the bureau, data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Department of Health, the census. In the Black community, 74% of Black women earn less than $50,000. Only 9% earn more than $74,000. And then, it is not uncommon, like on my show, to hear women who are $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 in debt.
Yes.
So I agree that college for some is a potential indicator of future success. Where the rubber meets the road, it tends to come down into the actual dollars. And what the issue tends to be is women, hypergamy. Women tend to want men to have equally yoked what they want. So one of the bigger issues, especially in the 90s, were white collar women not wanting to date blue collar men. Mm-hmm. Motherfucker, please, you work for UPS. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You're working for the firm downtown, but I'm working for UPS or GM, and I'm making $70,000, and you're making $40,000.
That's what I was going to say. The debt thing, because I'm in $1 million of debt. I own a home.
Right.
So Does that, would I?
No, it's
count?
college debt. It's college debt. It's student loan debt.
Okay.
So I guess, and the biggest thing is, especially like, there's a study called Black Men Make It in America by the American Enterprise Institute. 54% of Black men single, childless, 61% in the middle class, and 2.5 million in the upper class. The thing Black men have been told for the longest is you're underperforming, you're undereducated, and not keeping up. But that's where I kind of started getting interested, because I'm like, I look around and see a lot of guys like myself who are unmarried, who wanted relationship, but and this is where we kind of get into more cultural or racial things. In our particular community, it's not really mirrored or it's not really, we're not really taught this stuff. So our relationship tend to be mirrored to us by athletics, entertainment, musicians, young, youth. So 30 and under. You look at the space between 31 and up, where are the role models for relationship? And that's why you hear so many people going all the way back to where? The Cosbys. But so I would.
It really does sound like our audiences should get together, because my audience is coastal, university educated, probably high earning in their family at least, or lifestyle changing in their family, single women, usually women of color, who are struggling to find equally yoked mates. And it sounds like your demographic is made up of something very similar from a man's perspective.
Give you examples. That's what actually made my show take off, because high value, so many women start calling in. So if you look at some of my earlier shows before Average at Best, doctor, lawyer, Chicago, New York, Seattle, LA, Dallas, Houston. But what it comes right down to is what I did is I was hearing men equally yoked and women saying, where are all these men? And I'm like, so what I did is I have a Facebook group. It's called The Mix. All I did, I'm not a matchmaker. I took men and asked them a baseline of questions. Age, marital status, do you want marriage? Where do you work? What's your LinkedIn profile? Just some basic stuff. I vetted them, kind of looked through. Then I asked women, all right, same kind of questions, but not as much as men. And most of these people wanted relationships. I put, at the time, 400 men, 400 women in this group, okay? And I kind of just said it over there. I come back, relationship. There are 6 marriages that have happened. I posted on my Instagram, an attorney, successful personal injury attorney, Brother Sperling. He's several $1 million. His kids are like, you want children like the kids he has. His boys are in martial arts and foreign languages and this and that, you know. And he was a single dad for the longest. A nice man. He has a great relationship with his exes, but he was done. He was about to move to the Dominican Republic. I told him to join my group, and he finally did it. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll join it. In a week, he met his Ivy League educated fiance. And now
I need a link to this Facebook group. It sounds phenomenal.
Well, but my point is, he's here and she was in another part of the country. Now they are getting married. They just built out this home. He's putting her through law school. It's everything that Black women say they wanted. And all I did was put them in proximity. I just checked back in on this group yesterday. These women are having brunches, teas, men are networking, business is getting done. And I'm sitting back and I'm finding out about relationships that hadn't happened. And none of the people live in the same place. So what that did is it told me, I'm like, well, we're not that separated. We don't know how.
No need to say